One of the leaders from Legends of the Force that I was most excited about and didn't expect to be was the third sister. And I know for some of you think, oh, that's a bad leader. That's kind of weird. I really think there is some, and the pun is absolutely intended here, hidden potential with this leader. And I feel like I have not seen a lot of builds that are really scratching at what I think is the sort of the powerful stuff you can do with her. So in this video, I'm going to attempt to share with you a deck that I have had more success with than you might expect, than I expected. And it's kind of taken Third Sister in a slightly different direction from a lot of the lists that I have seen. So I hope you guys find it interesting. If this is a leader you've wanted to work out, maybe this is a fun deck for you to toy with. And I will say, well, this deck is probably not a top tier power level deck right now. It is a deck that I think has some room to grow in the future, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's jump right into our Third Sister Yellow Aggro Midrange deck profile. What's up, everyone? It's Dan with Main Deck, and welcome to another Star Wars Unlimited deck profile, this time for the Third Sister 30 health yellow base aggro mid-range deck. And I kind of call it aggro mid-range because I'm not totally sure where it falls. It does a lot of mid-rangey things, but it also can end the game pretty quickly. But it feels somewhere, I think, right in the middle there with some dedicated value plays, but also the ability just to punch a lot of damage. Well, let's look right at the list here. So this is our Third Sister yellow aggro mid-range deck. Third Sister, of course, is the leader with the action Exhaust. Play a unit from your hand. It gains Hidden for this phase, which means Hidden's a new mechanic. It cannot be attacked unless it has Sentinel. And don't worry, we don't have any Sentinels here. We're not worried about that. We are not playing any Sentinels. We're just going to be attacking the opponent a whole lot, because what this ability allows us to do is put units into play that are pretty good, but their big flaw, their big problem is that they get attacked and then they don't get to do their cool thing. And Third Sister gives us that opportunity to play it, and then if we can take the initiative next turn, we're guaranteed to be clocking in with that thing unless the opponent plays event-based removal, right? Event-based removal is obviously the big thing that Third Sister is weaker against, but thing is, the opponent can only have so much of that, and sometimes it's situational and it takes a couple more turns to get online. A lot of the better ones are at 4 and then have hoops to jump through still. So that Hidden ends up being pretty effective at making the opponent not be able to deal with your board, and so we're going to punish them. And we're going to play a lot of things that are going to make our board even better when they're not dealing with our problems, which is how we ended up with this Imperial focused Third Sister deck. Now notice the Third Sister, of course, is Imperial herself, as she deploys as a 5/4 Force Imperial Inquisitor with Hidden herself. And I can't stress how different Third Sister is than IG-88 because she has Hidden. It's night and day. Third Sister is actively, in my opinion, a playable leader, and IG-88 is still pretty rough to play because of that Hidden ability. And your ability, as important to keep in mind as well with Hidden, is that it's causing you to keep more units in play, which usually allows you to extend your actions a little bit longer against a lot of decks, meaning that it takes longer for you to get stuck into the position where all you can do is flip your leader, and it's harder for the opponent to keep up things, plays, attacks to deal with your leader after she flips. They're going to be pressured into playing things so you don't end up just taking the initiative on them. So for a lot of reasons, a lot of the time we drop Third Sister and she is entirely unbothered as she wants to go in for an attack, and we can really make it rough for the opponent when that happens too. And of course, she has on attack the next unit you play this phase gains Hidden, so she's still able to give Hidden to things, although a lot of the time it doesn't matter too much at that point. So yeah, that's our leader. Very aggressive leader. This is a 5 flip, which is pretty solid. You know, that good range for that mid-range to sometimes aggro flip. But with that Hidden ability and that incredible, actually, 5 power, making her do a lot of damage kind of out of nowhere. So the deck that we're running with her, of course, is this First Legion Snowtrooper as our first unit, just a 2 of. This is one of these cases, I'm going to say this maybe a couple of times, but this is one of these cases in this deck where this is clearly an older design of unit, and as soon as we get a like set 5 style designed Imperial 2-drop that's more like a 2/4, 2/4 with an ability, 2/5 without an ability, I would definitely be looking at swapping these out for those. But that said, giving this thing Hidden can make it so that perhaps, especially against like those Han 2 decks, it's going to be able to easily attack into a damaged unit that next turn, because it needs to attack in order to get that +2/+0 buff. But that's why it's a 2 of in here. It's just another, you just need to have 2 drops sometimes, so it does kind of its best. All right, now I feel like I do have to explain this Incinerator Trooper here, because don't get me wrong, it's a weak unit, it dies a lot, and anytime you're not on the initiative especially, it's not even really a play you want to make, because the opponent is just going to attack it and do it and take it out, especially with the units they have today with like their 2/5 Gungees. They're just going to attack it, and it's not a big deal. The Incinerator Trooper is really in here for when you are on the play, and this deck takes full advantage of what it can do when you're on the play. First of all, Third Sister giving it hidden does make it invulnerable to some of those really early plays that like might ambush into it or something. There's not a ton of those in the game right now, so it's not something you're really worried about. But we can give it hidden on a later turn, I guess, if you want to, if you expect to keep initiative, and that's occasionally relevant with some of our other plays. But as a first turn play on the initiative, you play it, you take initiative. On your next turn now, we have access to things like Snowtrooper Lieutenant, our next card, who's going to be able to +2/+0 it and get you value by just attacking the unit they played. Unless it's Gungy, it's going to die. And you're not going to lose your Incinerator Trooper in return. There are also some other plays, and we'll talk about them as we get to them, that can be used when you have the initiative to get to situations where this Incinerator Trooper can kind of 2-for-1 or 3-for-1 even easily, which is where we start to lean more into this sort of mid-range build. But I have found him, you know, I thought I'd take him out pretty quickly, but I have found him still really pulling his weight in those kind of half of games when you do get to go first. Snowtrooper Lieutenant otherwise, of course, is crazy. He's a Fleet Lieutenant. He's a 2/2 that +2/+0 action economies, lets you attack something as well, and works with any Imperial unit. And of course, Third Sister herself works, and actually I'll talk about the numbers in a little bit. The numbers are great on that flip turn for Lieutenant, but then works great with your Fifth Brothers, with your Moff Gideons, with your Lurking TIE Phantoms. I'll talk about all those in a little. He's great though. Great little dude. Does a lot of damage. Fifth Brother, I did mess around with the Grand Inquisitor, the new Grand Inquisitor in here as well, but I still really like the Fifth Brother for his ability to deal with shielded units especially, and for his ability when you equip that Fallen Lightsaber for him to just get out of control, doing tons and tons and tons of damage with that pseudo grit, that raid 1 for every damage he takes. His ability to ping other things and then combine with Fallen Lightsaber. He is a value machine. His big problem is that he gets attacked, but we give him hidden, so it's a lot easier to be able to start to pull attacks off with him and get that value, which is why he's been pretty great here. General Veers, likewise. General Veers dies a lot when you play him and he gets attacked, because he's just a 3/3 for 3, and at 3 we're looking more for a 3/5 stat line on our unit to consider it having a chance of existing. But a 3/3 hidden that then pumps your other units, pumps your Snowtrooper Lieutenant, pumps your Incinerator Trooper as well, if you've been able to keep it out. That can be pretty powerful. Pumps that Fifth Brother, so that Fifth Brother can actually take an extra damage. It's harder to get off the board, and then has a stronger raid. Pumps Third Sister as well. As a 6/5, Third Sister is starting to get real scary, and Veers being able to stay and play a lot easier because of that hidden. The opponent has to have an event to take him out. Been loving that. He's been great. But I think one of the cards I've loved the absolute most in here has been Moff Gideon. This little Imperial dude, this guy has ruined some people's games for sure. His problem, he can be attacked as a 4-drop 5/4. He's weaker than things like Ahsoka as a 3/5. Harder to take Ahsoka off the board than Gideon, but that hidden changes everything. Now you hidden Moff Gideon, and then you can take initiative. Go to the next turn. Start with a Gideon swing. Now the opponent can't play on curve. Maybe they even had a General's Blade set up, but they can't play that important like 7-drop that turn that Luke's not dropping. That Vader's, well, you wouldn't play it. Well, there are ways to General's Blade into Vader for sure. You know, he's just going to throw them off their game. Those ambushers are going to be harder to play. It's just going to make everything a little more awkward. And it's going to, that again, there's that sort of like mid-range value that you're going to gain with that. Well, he's pushing a good amount of damage as well. So Moff Gideon has been really, really sweet. Even have had some people try and pull off like a Palpatine's Return into a Snoke on me, but they didn't realize that Gideon had swung and was affecting their Snoke's cost. It was 9 now instead of 8, so they didn't have the resources to pay it anymore. So He's been so good. I've been loving Moff Gideon here because Third Sister really just removes that flaw that he has, that is Achilles' heel of just being able to be attacked before he does anything. If they attack him after that, that's fine. He's going to kill something, deal damage, throw their turn off. He's doing everything you want him to do. Darth Maul, another unit I've been dying to play and found a great spot in here. I just wish Darth Maul was an Imperial. He would be insane in this deck, but still, Darth Maul, and you'll see at the bottom this one of Darth Maul's lightsaber, is a great unit to give hidden to. Then the next turn, if the opponent's been able to put anything on board, Darth Maul can usually can definitely kill all of them if you have the lightsaber in hand. That's insane. He's going to do a 9 power overwhelm on 2 units. You're guaranteed to win the game, basically, at that point, if you ever set that up. But otherwise, he is still just a 5 power attack on 2 units that's just going to buy you so much room. Maybe keep your Gideon alive, keep your Veers alive, let you really set that up, and Maul can drop on the turn you drop Third Sister, so the opponent's already maybe stretching to try and deal with things, and that Maul's just going to be another problem they have to deal with. So he's been great. Again, just giving him hidden really feels like it opened up his playability a ton. And then I have the Darth Vader from Jump to Lightspeed, and I almost never actually even really have the opportunity to play him as a unit, as a ground unit, but as a pilot, Darth Vader has some really juicy targets here that will just win you the game if the opponent can't deal with them. And again, sometimes if they had hidden the previous turn, they might have been awkward to deal with anyway. Then you take initiative and now suddenly your thing's way bigger and they can't really deal with it. That hidden, man, it just does so much work. It's been so cool. But a lot of games, if you just put a Kylo's TIE Silencer, which is sadly not an Imperial unit, and then you Vader pilot it as a 6/5, the opponent can't deal with that in space because a lot of decks right now are focusing more on ground than they did during the Jump to Lightspeed meta. That 6/5 in space that's pinging their ground units when it attacks is pushing you into the position where as soon as you get that turn 4 Third Sister drop turn with whatever else you're doing, you just have gotten enough damage on the base where the pressure mounts too much, and you push your opponent into that kind of critical backed into a corner juncture where they no longer can play out their hand, because as soon as you set up, you take initiative and win the next turn. And that's kind of, you're really trying to get them to that position here, back them into the corner, and then close the game. And Darth Vader's been great at that as a pilot. But when you need that extra help to close it, we do have a couple copies of Cad Bane. I only have 2 because going to 7 is just not even all that common with this deck, except against the control decks that are rightfully a little stronger against you anyway. And Cad's there just to try and hopefully clear anything off the board so you can get some final attacks in. Or maybe just accrue some value so you can try to play a bit of a longer game. But yeah, he's in there for that purpose. He's something you'll resource a lot early on because you're not necessarily going to need him in a lot of matchups, but he's there when you need him. Going to our space units, Kylo's TIE Silencer is, I wish it was Imperial. Again, this is another one where maybe in future sets we get better 2-drops. First Legion Stormtrooper, Snowtrooper goes out, Kylo's TIE Silencer goes out, and we start to put in some Imperial traded units that fit our stat line and our game plan, and this deck starts to improve its synergy a lot. But for now, we take this 3/2 that we can put Vader on, and when the opponent force throws us, we can actually play it for value too, which is obviously really relevant in the current metagame because force throw is a key card that is being played in tons of decks. But we have way cooler space units here. The Lurking TIE Phantom. I love this. And you got to tell me you love this too, because this unit is so strong. It's so tough to deal with abilities. Its only problem is when the opponent can just attack it after you play it, but we give it hidden. So we make it even harder. You can give this thing hidden and then drop Vader as a pilot on it next turn. Now it is a 5/5 raid 2 that they cannot capture, damage, or defeat with enemy card abilities. They have to just attack into it, and it is pretty big at that point, and is just going to get a lot of damage on them, and they might not even have the space units to do it. It's just kills Bright Hopes, so they don't have to worry about that anymore. Yeah, it's good. It's really, really sweet, and it's not just Vader too. We're running the TIE Advanced in here as well. Another thing that's going to pump up our Imperial units, can use that on Third Sister, don't forget, on your leader, but use it on the Lurking TIE Phantom, use it on the Moff Gideon, use it on the General Veers, use it on the Fifth Brother so that he can take more damage. All of these things, when you start to TIE advance them, your opponent has problems that are bigger and bigger. I've done it on Incinerator Troopers, that now the opponent had to revolve their game around dealing with Incinerator Trooper, because just having access to those breaking in surprise strikes and Snow Trooper lieutenants made it a 6-power shoot first, a Han Solo, effectively, that was going to keep dealing with their board until they found a way around it. And finally, we have the Ruthless Raider as just a nice top end for the deck, which gives us some inevitability, some way to deal direct damage to the opponent and a threat that they have to deal with. And another thing that if you throw Vader on it, it's going to probably win the game pretty fast. So it's Ruthless Raider is just really great. It also is going to tie into one of our sideboard cards, so just stay tuned for that in a second. Now, going to our events, we have 2 copies of Force Throw in here. I know I only have 2, and I know that's like sacrilegious right now, but we don't have that many Force units. We have Third Sister, Fifth Brother, Darth Maul, and Vader, but Vader's usually a pilot, and pilots do not get to count their traits when they're attached to something, so it's been fine at 2 of it's been a card that has not always had a good opportunity to play it. It works really well when you go like flip Third Sister, TIE advanced, and then have the Force Throw available with the 1 extra resource. But a lot of the time, it's, again, we have a 2 of, it's just kind of, you'll find it when you need it, or you probably didn't need it that much. Now, if you're not new to the channel, you know how much I love Surprise Strike and Breaking In. And Breaking In here, we just have 2 copies of Surprise Strike at 3. Breaking In is going to give +2/+0, and Saboteur and Surprise Strike is going to give +3/+0. These are used with Incinerator Trooper to allow you to get free kills on things. These are used just to push damage. Obviously, you're going to get to the point where you've put some good pressure on them, and that's going to finish the game. And the Breaking In is going to let you get around Sentinels with those gigantic units that you're going to have built up. So they're great to have. And they give us that aggro slant to be able to go under those control decks that are otherwise going to cause us a lot of problems. And we have 2 copies of Waylay in here as well, just because I really feel like every deck needs to be packing some way to deal with Gunji General's Blade right now. I really like Waylay in here, but as a more mid-range deck, it's a lot more useful than in the more aggro-focused decks. You are going to be able to use this, if you want to think of it this way, it's like another hidden for a unit you're trying to protect. So if you have that Moff Gideon in play and the opponent plays a unit, they're going to try and threaten, take initiative, and then attack your Gideon next turn, you can actually just go, okay, fine, I'll just waylay your unit and then flip my Third Sister and then Surprise Strike with Third Sister, and suddenly I've dealt you 13 damage and you don't have anything in play, and you have to deal, just play another thing next turn, and I'm probably just going to attack you with Gideon again. And the tempo swing is really good here. This mid-range decks really like to be able to have this, often a lot more than the aggro decks do, which are a little more focused on just attacking, so it's a nice main board card here. And finally, we have our upgrades. 1 copy of Darth Maul's lightsaber, which obviously you want to put on Darth Maul whenever possible, but it's a +4/+2 for 3, which is pretty sweet. It's like it's kind of like a better constructed lightsaber on the units that you would put it on in here. That's not terrible at all. I mean, it turns out if you just make your Third Sister a 9/6, you also win the game pretty fast. The opponent's got to deal with that really quickly, and you can make that pretty difficult for them. So it's not a terrible upgrade in any case, as long as you can get at that kind of guaranteed attack that turn you play it on something. And then we have 3 copies of Fallen Lightsaber, which continues to be my favorite lightsaber to play. It is extremely strong. The +3/+3 HP, really big. We obviously have some really good sequences with this when you can set up that kind of safe Third Sister flip, and given hidden, it's pretty safe a lot of the time. So you're going to flip Third Sister, for example, put Fallen Lightsaber on her, making her an 8/7, and then play a Snow Trooper Lieutenant, putting another 2/2 on the board, and then attacking with her for a 10 power attack that turn. And now you have 10 power still on board next turn. Those bases start to look pretty small. As soon as you start doing that stuff, you also get to ping their board. It's obviously crazy on Fifth Brother, but even honestly, you can just throw this on Incinerator Trooper if you're pretty confident that your opponent's not going to have something like Power of the Dark Side in order to totally punish you for it. And that 5/5 with Shoot First is going to just be clearing their board every single turn. They'll never make any ground on you as long as you have that. And if they even put something bigger than 5, then that's where you have Lieutenant, Surprise Strike, Breaking In. You can combine them. So you can gain a lot of value. And then in the meantime, just kind of put something in space now and start attacking there, put out a Moff Gideon, and now they still have to deal with the Incinerator Trooper, but the Gideon's going to start attacking. It all feels so good when it all lines up that way. Now this deck is a little fragile, right? If they're going to have events that are going to deal with your stuff, that Hidden's not going to do a lot. If you're trying to stack things like Fallen Lightsaber or experience counters or put a Veers out and they're just like, you know, finding the cracks in your armor and just kind of defeating things, that's going to be tough. If you put a Vader pilot onto a Kylo TIE Silencer and they just answer it right away, what can you do, right? There are going to be cases where the opponent's going to answer things, but I think you'll be surprised playing this deck at how quickly you have a board of some pretty scary stuff, how much damage you are going to be able to deal to your opponent. And I especially think you'll be impressed at how strong Third Sister is on that flip turn, with all of these ways to kind of support her and build her up with the Veers, with the TIE Advanced, with the lightsabers, and even just using things like Lieutenant or Surprise Strikes to deal damage. It feels pretty good. We have a lot of ability to kind of be the dominant force on the board, making this a really solid mid-range deck, but with that aggro slant. But let's take a look at some sideboard options. Now, if you do want to take this to a best of 3 tournament, how are you going to tweak your deck to win more games? Now, as always, I'm just going to present you with some options and you decide what kind of stuff you want to bring most, or tweak the list or tweak the sideboard for the decks that you're going to be playing against. Here are some options that I've liked. You can include disabling Fang Fighter again if you're worried more about upgrades. I talk about this a lot in this metagame, but there are some really powerful upgrades out there, and disabling Fang Fighter is pretty nice for dealing with those, let alone all of the pilots from Jump to Lightspeed that still exist. Putting in that third Waylay, never a terrible thing to do. If your opponent is going to be going for that Gunji Blade and you don't want to get out mid-ranged by them, that Waylay is going to make sure that they do not have the jump on you. And like I mentioned in the rest of the profile, it's also just really useful for that sort of like pseudo second hidden, so it's not a terrible thing to have a third copy of just to throw in as well. And now we have a lot of options for dealing with control, because control decks are going to do the best job of taking you off of your game here with their events that are going to kill your stuff, and they're going later in the game, but we have some pretty good options, honestly, for putting some pressure back on them. One thing I really like is Planetary Bombardment, because a lot of the time the opponent's going to be spending a lot of their game just trying to deal with your board, and you're just going to be pushing damage in. And Bombardment, if they don't have anything to put the damage on, is going to be a direct 8 damage to their base. And if you have a Ruthless Raider out as well, it's actually 12. And this can be, even if they don't want to deal direct to base, this can just give you a huge chunk of damage to deal with on the board. And then things like Fallen Lightsaber can go and finish a lot of things off or whatever. So it's really not a terrible card, but against this control decks, they don't usually commit that much to board anyway, or they're in a case where they really don't want to take all that damage on something and just risk it dying to one of your little ping sources. So it's a pretty nice card to have sort of in your back pocket to give you a closer, some more guaranteed damage, especially after that turn that the opponent plays that Super Laser Blast. They take initiative, they Super Laser Blast, they clear the board, they go, cool, I made it. Now you Planetary Bombardment, you say, cool, take 8. And suddenly maybe you just won the game, or maybe it's you just need to get one thing in play and take initiative to win. And then additionally, we have 2 ways of just discarding cards from your opponent's hands. And I mean, I think you can, there are pros and cons to both of these. Bazine Natal obviously can hit anything, but then they get to draw a card to replace it, but it does have Smuggle, so it gives you a little bit of that card advantage, which is really, really clutch to have against those control decks, especially with all the discard that they're running now, with the blue-red decks that are running Force Throws alongside things like Pillage. Having those Smuggles can give you some needed card advantage so you don't get totally dumped, your whole hand gone. On the other hand, Tip the Scale. Now, Tip the Scale only targets non-unit cards, but that is exactly what you are weak against, right? Because we have Hidden on all our things the turn they come into play, so it's harder for the opponent to get kind of the jump at dealing with your board. So if you want to tip the scale a little bit more in your favor, you can now look at their hand and get rid of their Shatter Point, get rid of their Power of the Dark Side. You can get rid of their Super Laser Blast, right? You can actually get rid of their General's Blade. It does work on that too, which is pretty cool. So reasonable options. I think whatever you think feels best, or maybe a mix of them, bring them in 2 and 2, 3 and 2. Certainly some options, but I do think having some of that extra kind of targeted discard is going to help make sure your opponent's best cards to deal with your board they've been holding on to, they actually don't have access to, and that can really kind of give you the opening you need to close the game, which is exactly what you can't out control the control deck, right? But you just need to buy the right time in order to get the damage in before they stabilize. And that's what that's for. So that is our third sister yellow deck, Imperial focused. Really, really fun deck to play. Can be very aggressive, can also deal with the board pretty well. Has a lot of good options, and that hidden is going to annoy your opponents quite a bit, actually. That Gideon, oh, he's going to do some work. So I hope you guys enjoy this one. If you do give this one a try, I know this is a bit more of a unique deck, so let me know in the comments down below how it goes for you. I have had an absolute blast playing this deck, and I hope you do too, or if you make any changes, let me know as well. We've got more deck profiles coming, of course, and very soon the Galactic Championship is coming, which I'm super honored to be a commentator at. I'll be casting live that whole weekend, so make sure to tune in and check out all of the excitement for Star Wars Unlimited. We got a lot more coming here, so thank you guys so much for watching. Like the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you want to get more, and we will see you all in the next one.